Yarrick was a human miner, living alone on a quiet, cold asteroid. He had no friends, no family, no team, just machines and rocks around him. Each day he woke up at the same time, checked his scanners, and went out to dig for rare metals. His only friend was an old radio that sometimes played music when the signal was strong. He didn't mind the silence, but deep inside, he felt a hole, like something was missing. He had come here to forget his past, but even in space, the past followed quietly. One morning his radar beeped, a soft sound that meant something new had been detected. Yarrick looked at the screen and frowned. "Strange," he said softly. "That signal is not from my machines." The signal was weak and coming from the far side of the cliffs, a place he had never visited before. He grabbed his gear and climbed onto his rover. As he drove through the dusty land, wind blew sharp against his face, and his eyes narrowed. The signal grew stronger. After 20 minutes, he reached the edge of a broken platform. Metal, old, rusted, not his equipment. He stepped out carefully and walked toward the source of the signal. Then he saw it. His heart stopped for a second. There, on a tall metal pole, was a young alien girl, tied by her hands. Hanging weakly in the wind, her skin was pale blue. Her body thin and bruised, her eyes closed under her feet. A wooden board was nailed to the pole with strange letters, but one line was written in English. "The Baron never forgives." Yarrick's breath caught in his throat. He had heard that name long ago. A dark name, full of fear and power. The Baron was no myth. Yarrick moved closer, and the girl's eyes slowly opened. They glowed faintly, a strange silver color. Not like anything he had seen before. She didn't speak, just looked at him with pain and something else. Trust. He looked around quickly. Was this a trap? Were there cameras? Drones? Guards? But the place was silent. Only the wind and dust spoke here. Yarrick reached up and began cutting the ropes with his mining knife. The ropes were tight, rough, and old. When she dropped into his arms, she was lighter than he expected. Her body trembled, cold and tired, but she didn't faint. She tried to speak, but only a soft sound came out, like static mixed with a whisper. He carried her back to his rover, laid her gently on the seat, and covered her with his jacket as he drove back. His mind was racing. Who was she? Why was she left there? And why did that message warn about the Baron? Back at his shelter, he placed her on the medbed. Machines scanned her silently, showing strange symbols he didn't recognize. "She's not from any planet I know," he muttered. She opened her eyes again and looked at him. He smiled gently and said, "You're safe now, okay? I don't know who you are, but I won't hurt you." She looked at him for a long time, then nodded slowly. She still didn't speak, but her eyes told a story of pain, escape, and fear. That night, as Yarrick sat near his window looking at the stars, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Don't let them find me," the girl whispered. He turned to her quickly. "Who's after you?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "The Baron and his hunters. They never stop." Yarrick's stomach turned. He remembered once being hired by the Baron's men long ago. He had left that job after seeing things he could never forget. He thought he was safe from them out here. But now they had come to this quiet rock too, and they had left this girl as a warning. Or maybe a message. He looked at her again, small, weak. But something about her felt powerful, like she was more than just a victim. The lights in his shelter flickered. His radio made a soft sound. Not music, not static. It was a voice. A robotic voice speaking one clear message. "Return the girl, or die." Yarrick stood up slowly, staring at the radio. The girl looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. He walked to her and said firmly, "I don't know who you are, but you're not going back to them." She looked surprised, then nodded again slowly. Yarrick didn't know what storm was coming, but he had made his choice for the first time in years. He didn't feel so alone, but he also knew this was just the beginning. The shelter was quiet. Except for the soft hum of machines, Yarrick sat beside the alien girl, watching the medbed scan her body again and again. Her breathing was slow, weak, but steady now. He had wrapped her in a warm blanket, gave her water, and waited. Outside, the wind screamed against the metal walls like a ghost in pain. Yarrick stared at the blinking lights on his console. The message still glowing red: "Return the girl, or die." He had seen threats before, but this one felt different. This was personal. The girl suddenly moved, her eyes opening slowly, glowing faint silver in the dim light. She looked around in confusion, her lips dry, voice shaking. "Where Am I? She whispered. Jarek leaned closer, trying to sound calm. You're safe. You're in my mining shelter, he said. I found you out there, hanging from a pole. You almost died. She blinked as if trying to remember something that was lost in fog. Her eyes darted around, confused by the machines and strange lights. Who are you? She asked weakly. Jarek, he replied. Just a miner. Nobody special. He waited for her to tell him her name, but she didn't. Her silence was heavy, so he asked gently, And you? What's your name? She stared at the ceiling, her voice soft. I don't know, Jarek frowned. You don't remember? She shook her head, small tears forming in her eyes. I remember chains, fire, and a voice that said... She stopped suddenly, her body shaking. Jarek quickly held her hand. It's okay. Don't force yourself. He had seen trauma before, but never like this. This wasn't just pain. It was fear mixed with guilt. Like she blamed herself for something terrible. Jarek stood up and went to his old data pad. Searching his logs, no missing reports, no signals from patrol ships, nothing. Whoever left her here didn't want her found. He looked at her again, small, fragile, yet her eyes carried something ancient. Not the eyes of a normal being. Maybe she was part of some experiment. Or maybe worse, the radio crackled again suddenly. Making him jump, static filled the room. Then a voice soft but dark. Miner Jarek, you have something that belongs to the Baron. He froze. Return the girl before sunset, and we may let you live. The voice laughed, cold and cruel, and the signal cut. The girl covered her ears, trembling. It's them, she whispered. They found me. Jarek turned off the radio, trying to stay calm. Listen, you're safe here. No one's getting through my walls, but inside, he wasn't so sure. The Baron's hunters were not normal soldiers. They used machines that could melt through rock and metal, and if they knew her location, time was running out. Jarek checked his weapons, an old mining laser. A plasma cutter, a few grenades, not enough. He sighed and looked at her again. Can you tell me anything? Anything about why they want you? She closed her eyes, thinking, I remember a cage, lights above me, and a man with metal eyes. Jarek's hand froze. Metal eyes. That was the Baron's mark. He was known for replacing his eyes with red cyber lenses that could see through lies. Jarek whispered, You've met him, haven't you? She nodded slowly. He called me his creation. Jarek stepped back, confused. Creation? Not daughter? Not prisoner? His chest tightened. What are you saying? He asked. But she didn't answer. She was already drifting into sleep again, whispering one last word. Key. That word echoed in his mind all night. A key to what? Later, while checking the perimeter, Jarek noticed something strange. One of his drones was missing. He checked the feed, but it showed static. Then, through the fog of the camera, he saw a shape moving outside. Tall, metallic with red glowing eyes, a hunter. It was scanning the ground where he found the girl. Jarek grabbed his blaster and shut down all outside lights. The girl woke up, frightened. What's happening? He whispered. They're here. She sat up. Her eyes glowing brighter now. Her fear turned into something else. A strange calm. She placed her hand on the wall, and for a moment, the metal rippled like water. Jarek stared in shock. How did you do that? She looked at him, confused. I don't know. The ground shook and alarms began to scream. The hunter had found the shelter. Jarek grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back door. We have to move. Now. They ran through the tunnels, dust and sparks falling around them. The sound of metal claws scraping closer and closer. The girl stopped suddenly, turning to face the tunnel. Her eyes flashed silver again, and the walls began to vibrate. A shockwave burst from her hands, collapsing the tunnel behind them. The sound faded into silence. Jarek stood frozen, staring at her glowing hands. What are you? He whispered. She looked down, scared of herself. I don't know, she said again, her voice trembling. But they made me this way. Jarek stared at the tunnel smoke. Then at her, whatever she was, human, alien, or weapon, he couldn't leave her now. He looked toward the horizon and said quietly, Then we'll find out together. But as they disappeared into the darkness, a new sound filled the air, far away in the dust storm. Red lights blinked, hundreds of them. The Baron's hunters were coming, and this time, they wouldn't stop until the girl was back in chains. Dust filled the air like a thick blanket. Jarek and the girl moved quickly through the underground tunnels. The light from his torch flickered against the metal walls. Each step echoed like a warning behind them. The collapsed tunnel still sizzled with energy. The girl had used some kind of power. Not tech, not science, something ancient. Something alive. She walked beside him silently. Jarek could see the fear in her eyes. But also something else, and strength. She wasn't just running anymore. She was watching, listening, ready. "We'll head to the old cargo station," Jarek said. "It's not far and it has a ship, half broken. But maybe we can fix it." The girl nodded but said nothing. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the dark. She didn't know her name, her past, or her full power. But Jarek could feel it. She was more than a lost alien. She was a target, a weapon. Maybe even a key to something much bigger. Suddenly, a strange humming sound filled the tunnel. Jarek raised his torch. The light caught moving shadows on the wall. "Stop," he whispered, pulling her behind an old crate. The humming grew louder, and then they saw it. A hunter. Walking slowly through the dust, it had no face. Only a smooth, round helmet with a red, glowing slit. Its arms were long, with blades instead of fingers. It moved like it was sniffing the air. Hunting silently, the girl held her breath. Her body shook, not in fear, in anger. Jarek whispered, "Don't do anything." But it was too late. The hunter turned its head sharply. The red slit locked onto their hiding place. It screeched a high-pitched metallic sound and charged forward. Jarek pushed the girl behind him and fired his mining laser. The beam hit the hunter's shoulder, burning metal, but it kept coming. Jarek ducked as the blade slashed the crate in half. Sparks flew. He kicked a barrel toward it. The impact made the dust explode in the air. The girl stepped forward, her hands glowing silver again. The hunter paused, confused. Then she raised her arm, and the tunnel wall beside it turned into liquid metal. The wall wrapped around the hunter like a trap. Holding it tight, it screamed and twisted, but couldn't escape. In seconds, it was sealed inside the wall, frozen like a statue. Jarek stared, breathless. "How did you do that again?" he asked. The girl looked at her hand, then at the wall. "I don't know," she said, "but it feels like the metal listens to me." He nodded slowly, wiping sweat from his face. "Remind me not to make you angry," he joked. She gave a small smile, the first one he'd seen. They kept moving, deeper into the tunnels. Finally, they reached the old cargo station. It was dusty, broken, but still had power. Inside was a small ship. Rusty, half covered in tarps, but strong. "This was my escape plan," Jarek said. "Guess it's now our only hope." The girl walked around the ship slowly. Her fingers touched the surface gently. Then suddenly the ship beeped. Lights came on. Systems flickered. "What did you do?" he asked, surprised. She shook her head. "I just touched it." The ship's voice came on, a soft female tone. "Welcome back, Core Blood host." Jarek froze. "Core Blood?" he repeated. The girl's eyes went wide. "That word. I remember it," she whispered. "It's what the Baron called me. His Core Blood key." Jarek felt a chill run down his spine. "So you're not just a weapon. You're something they need to unlock something." The girl nodded. "There's an ancient vault somewhere," she said slowly. "A place full of knowledge and power. The Baron wanted to open it, but only someone like me could." Jarek looked around the station. "What happens if he opens it?" She answered without blinking. "The galaxy dies." A silence fell between them. Jarek walked to the ship's controls. Starting repairs, he didn't say it out loud. But he had made his choice. They had to stop the Baron. But first, they had to survive. Hours passed as they worked. The ship was almost ready. But then the station lights dimmed. Jarek looked up. No, he muttered. A red glow appeared through the station windows. Dozens of hunters were outside, surrounding them. The Baron had found them again. The girl stepped forward, her eyes brighter than ever. "Let me handle this," she said. Jarek touched her arm. "You don't have to do it alone." She looked at him and nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Then without fear, she walked toward the door. The shadows in the dust were closing in, but this time she wasn't running. She was ready to face them, and Jarek. He wasn't just a miner anymore. He was part of something far bigger. Something that could change the stars. The air inside the station turned heavy. Outside, red lights glowed in the dust like angry eyes. The Baron's hunters stood in silence, waiting, watching, surrounding the building from all sides. Jarek gripped the mining blaster tightly. It was old, maybe useless against so many machines beside him. The girl, still nameless, stood with her eyes closed. Silver light flowed around her hands like smoke. "You don't have to fight them all," Jarek whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the center of the room and placed her palm on the floor. The ground pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and a hidden panel opened beneath them. A round lift appeared, glowing with soft blue lights. "What is that?" Jarek asked. She opened her eyes and said calmly, "The real reason I came here." The door behind them rattled. The hunters were starting to break in. Jarek looked at her, confused. "You knew this place had something else?" She nodded. "There's a vault beneath this station," she said. "Long ago it was sealed by my ancestors. The core bloods, they left behind knowledge, weapons, and something even more dangerous." Jarek swallowed hard. "And the Baron wants it." She looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "He doesn't just want it. He was built to find it." The lift opened with a soft chime. They both stepped inside, and it began to descend slowly above them. The ceiling trembled. The hunters were breaking through. As they went deeper, Jarek asked, "What do you mean, built to find it?" The girl touched her temple gently. "In my memories, there was a man," she said. "He had metal eyes, a voice like thunder, and hands that never shook. He called me daughter, but I knew it was a lie. He created me from royal DNA mixed with ancient codes. He trained me to obey, but I escaped before he could use me fully." Jarek clenched his jaw. "So, he made you to unlock this vault?" She nodded. "He is not just a man. He is a design, a perfect servant of an ancient empire, reprogrammed, twisted, and given one order: open the vault." No matter the cost, the lift stopped with a soft hiss. Before them stood a giant door, curved and smooth like glass. Symbols danced across its surface, alien writing that Jarek couldn't read. The girl stepped forward and placed her hand on the center. A soft voice echoed in the chamber. "Core blood signature detected. Unlocking passage." The door slid open slowly, revealing a room full of light. It wasn't made of stone or metal, and it looked alive. Walls shifted like liquid. Lights floated in the air like fireflies. In the center of the chamber stood a single pedestal. On it was a small crystal cube, glowing blue. The girl stepped toward it, her body shaking. "That's it," she whispered. "The core key," Jarek followed her slowly. "What does it do?" "It connects to every old ship, weapon, and archive built by the core bloods," she said. "With it, the Baron could rule thousands of systems." She reached for the cube, but stopped. "If I touch it, I might change," she said quietly. "I don't know who I'll become." Jarek placed his hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he said. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." She looked at him, eyes wide and full of emotion. Then she nodded slowly. She reached out and touched the cube. The chamber exploded with light. Symbols flew into the air, spinning around her like a storm. Her feet lifted off the ground, her hair rising, her body glowing silver and blue. Jarek stepped back, shielding his eyes. The cube floated into her chest, went and disappeared. Then silence. She dropped to the floor. Unconscious, he rushed to her side, holding her in his arms. "Hey, hey! Wake up," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, but now they were no longer silver. They were deep blue, like the stars. She sat up slowly. "I remember everything now," she said. "My name is Liari," Jarek smiled. "Liari," he repeated. "It suits you." Suddenly, alarms rang through the vault above them. The hunters had found the entrance. Liari stood up, her body calm. Her mind clear, she raised her hands and blue energy crackled between her fingers. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. Jarek picked up his blaster. "Then let's finish this," he said. The vault door opened again, and the battle began. But now they had more than courage. They had the truth, the key, and a new name. And the Baron would soon learn the girl he tried to control was never his to begin with. The vault shook with heavy footsteps. The Baron's hunters had found the way in. Jarek and Liari stood side by side, staring at the glowing exit doors. Outside, death waited in metal form. But Liari was no longer weak. She remembered her name, her power and her purpose inside her. The ancient core key pulsed with light, not cold or mechanical, but alive. Jarek tightened his grip on the mining blaster. He looked at her and asked, "Can you control it?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, her body began to glow again, brighter than before. Her voice was soft but steady. I think the weapon is waking up suddenly. A low hum filled the chamber. The air felt heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. The vault door burst open, 4 hunters rushed in, weapons charged, red eyes glowing. Yarrick raised his blaster, but Liari stepped forward. She lifted her hand and the space around her shifted. The floor melted like water, then hardened into sharp spikes. The hunters didn't even scream. They were impaled and frozen mid-attack. Yarrick stared in shock. You didn't just stop them. You shaped the world. Liari looked at her hands, surprised. I didn't know I could do that. Suddenly, the vault shook again, but this time not from footsteps. A deep voice echoed through the walls. So, my little creation has finally bloomed. It wasn't from a speaker. It was in their minds. Jarek winced, grabbing his head. Liari narrowed her eyes. It's him, she whispered. The Baron is here. A massive hole ripped open in the wall behind them. The dust cleared, revealing a tall figure covered in silver armor. His face was smooth metal, but his eyes glowed red like 2 suns. He didn't need weapons, he was a weapon. Yarrick aimed his blaster. The Baron smiled without lips. Ah, the miner, he said, a brave little tool. Standing beside my masterpiece, Liari stepped forward, her body glowing with blue energy. I'm not yours, she said. You never owned me, the Baron tilted his head. You were built from royal blood and core tech, he said. You are not a girl, not a person. You are a command key, a weapon to unlock the galaxy. No, she whispered. I'm more than what you made me. The Baron raised his hand. Energy pulsed through the floor, shaking the chamber. Liari fell to one knee, gripping her chest. The core key inside her was reacting to his signal. She's not ready, Jarek shouted. He rushed forward and shot at the Baron. The laser bounced off his armor like dust. The Baron didn't even blink. He raised one finger, and Jarek flew backward, hitting the wall hard. Human, the Baron growled. You should have stayed in your hole, Liari screamed, light bursting from her body. The core key responded. Blue circuits ran up her arms and across her face. She hovered off the ground, energy spinning around her like a storm. You want a weapon? She shouted. Then take this. She slammed her hands into the floor. The entire vault lit up, walls turned into shields, pillars into hammers, metal into blades. The vault had awakened, because Liari was now its master. The Baron charged at her, but the room fought back. Towers rose and slammed into him. Metal vines grabbed his limbs. Still, he pushed forward. Unstoppable, Liari met him midair, their powers colliding in a flash of blue and red. Energy crackled, walls cracked, and dust flew everywhere. Yarrick pulled himself up, injured but alive. He saw Liari struggling, the Baron's strength overwhelming hers. He remembered something from the vault's code panel, a line that said, Core key must be grounded with purpose. He ran to the center console and shouted, Liari, you need to choose what you fight for. She heard his voice through the storm. Her eyes opened wider, her power flickering. I choose, she whispered, and then louder. I choose freedom. A giant wave of light exploded from her chest. The Baron screamed for the first time, not in anger but fear. His body cracked, glitched, and shattered into thousands of red particles. Silence returned. The storm faded. The chamber was in ruins, but they were alive. Liari dropped gently to the ground. Her glow faded, her breathing heavy. Yarrick ran to her and caught her before she fell. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. I almost lost myself, she said. He smiled. But you didn't. She nodded slowly. You reminded me who I was. Together. They stood in the broken vault, no Baron, no hunters. Just 2 souls. One human, one core blood. The weapon had awakened, yes. But it had chosen not to destroy. It had chosen to protect. The vault was quiet. Too quiet. Jarek helped Liari to her feet. Her breathing was slow. Her glow now soft and dim. The energy wave she released had shattered the Baron into dust, but they both knew. It wasn't over. The hunters were still out there, and the core key inside her still pulsed, calling to systems older than stars. Jarek looked around the ruined chamber. Can you walk? He asked gently. Liari nodded, but her legs shook. I'll manage, she whispered. They moved through the broken vault together, Jarek's arm around her, her hand gripping his for balance above them. The station groaned. Metal creaked and floors shook. Suddenly, the lift lights blinked red. The emergency alarm screamed once more. Liari's eyes widened. No, he left a signal. What kind of signal? Yarek asked. She closed her eyes and listened. A failsafe, she said. When the Baron dies. The final wave comes. Jarek stared at her. What wave? The rest of his army, she whispered, and this time. No hunters, no whispers, just destruction. The ground rumbled. Dust falling from the ceiling like rain. Jarek helped her to the lift and pressed the surface button. They rose slowly, the light above flickering like a dying star. When the doors opened, they stood in silence. The cargo station above was gone. Burned, torn, smashed into pieces outside. Dozens of ships hovered in the sky, black, sharp, silent, and from them, figures dropped. Not hunters this time. These were larger, older, armored in bone and metal. Machines mixed with beasts. The Baron's final guard. Yarek pulled Liari behind a broken pillar. He looked at her pale face. You can't fight them like this, he said. She nodded slowly. I use too much energy. Then we run, he said. She looked at him with tired eyes. Where? Yarek smiled, even though fear sat heavy in his chest. To the ship. He helped her toward the dock at the far end of the station. The old ship they found, once dead, now pulsed with blue light. Liari had awakened it earlier, and it had waited for them as they ran. The ground behind them exploded. One of the guards had spotted them. It landed with a roar that shook the rocks. Its face was covered in wires. Eyes glowing orange, it opened its mouth, and from within came a strange, deep voice. Return the key. Jarek fired his blaster. The bolt hit its shoulder and did nothing. Keep moving. He shouted. Liari looked back once, then raised her hand. A soft light formed, weak but still there. She touched a metal pipe beside her, and it grew like a vine. The metal twisted into spikes and wrapped around the guard's legs. Slowing it down, they reached the ship's entrance. Yarek slammed the door button and it opened with a loud hiss. Inside, the ship felt alive, lights running like veins across the walls. The voice of the ship greeted them again. Welcome, Coreblood host. Escape ready. Jarek laid Liari down gently in the pilot's seat. She touched the console and the ship responded. It knows me, she said softly. Jarek nodded. It should. You woke it outside. The guards gathered, they raised cannons, and a low hum filled the air. Yarek sat in the second seat, looking at the sky. There's too many, he said. We won't make it out if they fire at launch. Liari looked at him. I can shield the ship, but only from one blast. Jarek frowned. Then that's not enough. A moment of silence passed between them. Then Jarek stood up. What if I distract them? She grabbed his hand. No, she said. You won't survive. He looked into her eyes. I might, he said. But you're the key to more than this vault. Your hope. They wanted to use you as a weapon. But I believe you're more than that. She shook her head. Tears falling. I don't want to lose you, he smiled. You won't, he said. Because I'll be in every corner of that sky, watching you fly free. Before she could stop him, he kissed her forehead gently. Then he ran out of the ship, firing into the sky, shouting, Hey, you metal freaks! Over here! The guards turned, their eyes locking onto him. They charged, weapons glowing. Liari screamed from the ship. No! Yarek stood firm, brave even in fear. The guards aimed, and just before they fired, the ship launched. A massive beam hit the ground where Jarek stood. Dust and fire rose high. But the ship flew fast, high, untouchable. Inside, Liari cried, her hands gripping the console, her heart breaking. But the ship's voice whispered something. Signal detected. Human life form. Minimal shield. Status alive, Liari gasped. Jarek. Far below, buried under broken stone and glowing ash, a signal blinked. Faint but steady. The final storm had passed. And maybe, just maybe, they had both survived it. The stars stretched wide across the black sky. Cold, silent, endless. And in that vast sea of light, one ship flew alone. Liari sat in the captain's seat, her eyes full of quiet fire. Her body was still weak, but her mind was strong. Jarek's voice echoed in her memory. You're more than a weapon, you're hope. She looked down at the screen again. The signal blinked faintly, deep below the planet's broken surface. Lifeform detected ID tag human. Jarek, he was alive. Buried, maybe hurt, but alive. She had a choice now. She could fly away, hide, take the core key somewhere safe, or She could go back. The ship's AI spoke gently. Core blood host, the storm has passed, but danger remains, Liari whispered. Then I'll face it again. She turned the ship around, diving through the clouds toward the burning ground. Below, Jarek lay under metal and dust, his breath shallow, his body bruised, but his mind awake. He stared up at the sky through a crack in the rocks. He had seen the ship escape. He had seen Liari fly. He smiled weakly. Good, he whispered. She made it. He thought he was dying. But then a soft light touched his skin. He turned his head and saw her. Liari floated down from the ship like a falling star, her eyes glowing blue, her hands reaching toward him. You're the most stubborn miner I've ever met, she said. Smiling, he laughed through the pain. You came back. She knelt beside him. Of course, she said, you gave me a name. Jarek, you gave me a reason, with her help. The ship lifted the rocks. She carried him inside, laying him gently in the healing chamber. The AI scanned his body and began repairs. Jarek closed his eyes. Remind me to never fight a robot army again, he joked. She laughed, tears running down her cheeks. No promises. Days passed as the ship flew quietly through space. Jarek healed slowly, and Liari began unlocking more of the core blood systems. One night, Jarek walked onto the deck, still limping. He found her standing at the front window. Watching the stars, he joined her, silent for a moment. They're looking for us, aren't they? He asked. She nodded. The Baron's death created a power vacuum, she said. Others will come, wanting what he wanted. Jarek looked at her. So, what do we do? She turned to him. I could hide, she said. Use the core key to vanish. Erase my signal, disappear. And will that help anyone? He asked. She was quiet, then she answered. No. He touched her shoulder gently. Then we fight. But not just to survive. To protect, she smiled softly. For years I was just a tool, she said, but now I feel something different. He looked at her with a question in his eyes. She pointed out the window. I see life, she said. Planets that need healing, systems still under fear. I could be their shield, Jarek nodded. Then we become something new. He paused, then added with a small grin. Just don't make me wear a cape, she laughed again. I think you'd look good in one, later that night. Liari stood alone in the command chamber. She looked at the stars and spoke softly. I was made in a lab, she whispered. No mother, no past, no name, just a purpose. She held the core key in her hands. It pulsed with soft light, not cold anymore, but warm. Now I have a name, she said. I have a friend. I have a future. She placed the key into the ship's heart. The entire vessel lit up. Systems unlocked, maps appeared, star routes opened. Command accepted, the ship said. Mission Hope. Liari looked up, her voice full of quiet strength. Let's begin. The next morning, Jarek woke up to a strange sound. He walked to the window and saw something written across the stars. Letters made of shiplight moving slowly, shining softly. It read, Forgiveness is found in the lonely. He smiled. That's your message? He asked her. She stood beside him, arms crossed. No, she said. That's our message, he looked at her. A once-lost girl with glowing eyes, a living weapon who chose peace. A creation who chose her own path, you know, he said. When I found you hanging from that pole, I thought you were just some poor prisoner. She nodded. I was, but now I'm free, Jarek smiled. And what do free people do? Liari stared at the stars. We fly, she whispered. We protect, and we never forget who gave us our name. And so, the miner and the girl, once strangers, became legends. Not of war, but of hope, not of power, but of choice. They were no longer running, they were rising, and across the galaxy, in broken places on dark worlds. When lost children looked up at the night sky, they would see that gentle light written across the stars. A name, a message, a promise, Liari, core blood of hope, and the human who stayed.